Human history is filled with people who were extremely confident and extremely wrong. In 2008, Lehman Brothers CEO Richard Fuld declared, "Our foundation is solid. We have strong capital and liquidity." Just months later, Lehman Brothers collapsed, triggering the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos, once asserted, "We've developed technology that can perform hundreds of tests from just a few drops of blood with unprecedented accuracy." The result? A $9 billion fraud and thousands of patients receiving incorrect test results. In 2003, President George W. Bush stood beneath a "Mission Accomplished" banner declaring victory in Iraq. The reality? The war continued for 8 more years, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. What causes those with the greatest power to make the greatest mistakes with absolute confidence? Philosopher Bertrand Russell recognized this pattern nearly a century ago when he wrote, "The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, while wiser people are full of doubts." Russell was no ordinary thinker. He was one of the 20th century's greatest philosophers and mathematicians, who revolutionized logic and analytical philosophy. When he made this observation in the 1930s, Europe was witnessing the rise of fascism, a political movement built on absolute certainty rather than factual evidence. Imagine 2 people speaking before you. The first speaks with complete confidence, being definitive on every issue, never hesitating, never acknowledging any limits to their knowledge. The second is more careful, acknowledges complexity, offers qualifications, and is candid about what they're uncertain about. Who would you trust more? If you're like most people, you'd be drawn to confidence. This is no accident. This is the heart of Russell's paradox of stupidity. The least knowledgeable people are often the most confident, and that confidence helps them achieve power. In this video, we'll explore the neurological and psychological foundations behind this paradox. We'll examine how modern institutions inadvertently amplify this phenomenon. We'll analyze why our political systems are vulnerable to fake confidence, and how social media has transformed this paradox into a global crisis. Most importantly, we'll discover potential solutions at every level of society. After this video, you'll never look at confidence the same way again. But first, we need to understand the psychological mechanisms behind this paradox. Psychological and neuroscience foundations. In 1999, 2 psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger from Cornell University, conducted a series of simple but profound experiments. They asked students to complete tests on grammar, logic, and humor, and then self-evaluate their abilities. The results were astonishing and perfectly aligned with Russell's observations from decades earlier. Students who scored lowest on the tests, those in the bottom 25%, rated their skills equivalent to the 62nd percentile of participants. In other words, they thought they were above average, while actually being at the bottom. This is the peak of Mount Stupid, the point where people know just enough to feel confident, but not enough to recognize how little they know. This effect appears everywhere in society. 88% of drivers rate themselves as above average behind the wheel. 94% of college professors believe their work is superior to their peers. Low-ability individuals overestimate their competence by an average of 40 to 50%. Meanwhile, high-ability individuals typically underestimate themselves by 15 to 20%. But why is this the case? The answer lies in a concept called metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking. To accurately assess your skill in any domain, you need enough knowledge in that domain to recognize what you don't know. This is the double curse of incompetence. Lack of knowledge not only causes you to give wrong answers, but it also robs you of the ability to recognize that your answers are wrong. As Dunning explained, incompetence robs people of the ability to recognize their own incompetence. A first-year medical resident isn't as confident as a first-year medical student, not because they know less, but because they know enough to recognize the complexity of medicine. Modern neuroscience reveals what happens in the brains of overconfident people. When making incorrect judgments, their brains don't activate the error detection region, the anterior cingulate cortex, as they normally would. In fact, the more confident they are about their abilities in a field they don't master, the less likely they are to activate brain regions involved in detecting contradictions and correcting errors. Biologically, they can't see their own mistakes. Let's look at a concrete example. A novice entering the stock market. After a few small successful trades, they believe they've figured out the market, a notion that makes fund managers with decades of experience laugh. The beginner doesn't understand the actual complexity, so they think the problem is simple. An emergency physician with 30 years of experience shared, "I often encounter patients who Google their symptoms for 10 minutes, then confidently argue with my diagnosis. They don't realize that each individual symptom could relate to dozens of different causes, and only clinical experience helps distinguish between them." Understanding the Dunning-Kruger Effect isn't just an interesting psychology lesson. It's the key to understanding why our workplaces, governments, and societies are often dominated by the least competent but most confident people. Let's see how this phenomenon manifests in the business world. Manifestations in the business world. Two management researchers, Mats Alvesson and Andre Spicer, spent years studying a phenomenon they call functional stupidity, a state where organizational employees and leaders are discouraged from critical thinking, questioning, or expressing doubt. They identify 3 levels of functional stupidity in modern organizations. Level 1 is lack of reflexivity, applying one-size-fits-all solutions regardless of context. This is why consulting firms often apply the same best practices to every client, regardless of industry or size. Level 2 is lack of justification, avoiding questioning basic assumptions. Employees are encouraged to not think beyond their role and just follow the process. Level 3 is lack of substantive reasoning, not requiring or providing rational explanations for decisions. Leaders make statements like, "This is how we've always done it," or "Trust me on this one." Classic examples of blind confidence in business are Enron and Theranos. CEOs like Jeffrey Skilling and Elizabeth Holmes displayed absolute confidence in business models that were fundamentally unsustainable or fraudulent. A former Enron employee shared, "The corporate culture rewarded absolute confidence. If you questioned or expressed doubt, you were seen as not a team player. That's why nobody challenged numbers that were clearly too good to be true." In the tech world, we see a phenomenon that could be called innovation theater, where companies prioritize the appearance of innovation over actual innovation. In 2023, Google established a highly publicized AI ethics board that disbanded within weeks when members realized it was merely a public relations effort with no real power to influence decisions. A 2024 MIT study found that 73% of Fortune 500 companies implemented machine learning systems they fundamentally didn't understand, resulting in $240 billion in cumulative losses from algorithmic errors. Why? Because no one wanted to admit they didn't understand the technology that everyone was using. Most concerning is how we reward confidence over actual competence. Between 2000 and 2025, CEO confidence scores measured through textual analysis of earnings calls increased by 38%, while average company ROI decreased by 21% during the same period across S&P 500 firms. We're rewarding confidence even when it doesn't deliver results. One CEO anonymously confessed, "I've learned that speaking confidently about things I don't understand gets me further than acknowledging uncertainty about things I actually do understand." All of this combines to form what management theorist Lawrence J. Peter identified in 1969, the Peter Principle. People tend to be promoted until they reach their level of incompetence. But Russell's paradox adds a crucial component. Overconfident but incompetent people tend to be promoted faster than those with actual competence but more humility. A shocking study revealed that 80% of managers are capable of assessing employee confidence, but only 32% can accurately assess actual competence. No wonder our organizations routinely reward the appearance of competence over competence itself. But if you think this phenomenon is limited to business, prepare to be surprised. In politics, the consequences of Russell's paradox are even more severe. Politics and public governance. Recent decades have witnessed the global rise of what political scientists call hyperbolic politics, where leaders with absolute confidence in simple solutions to complex problems dominate the political space. The 2024 Global Governance Index revealed a disturbing reality. 62% of laws passed in democratic countries worldwide directly contradicted expert consensus in relevant fields. This phenomenon isn't the problem of any particular ideology. It occurs on both the left and right. In Brazil, President Bolsonaro's Amazon deforestation policies ignored 98% of recommendations from environmental scientists. When questioned about this, his reported response was, "I know what's best for the Amazon. I've lived in Brazil my entire life. Why do such politicians still get elected?" An astonishing study on voter psychology provides the answer. Voters consistently rate confident candidates 29% higher in competence than candidates who display nuance and deeper thinking, even when the latter's policies are more accurate. Neuroscience explains why. The human brain responds positively to certainty. When we hear someone speak with absolute confidence, brain regions associated with safety and trust activate. Certainty provides a sense of security and reduces anxiety in a complex world. Think about recent election debates. Who is typically declared the winner? Usually the person who speaks concisely and definitively, not the one who provides complex answers with appropriate nuance. As one prominent political commentator put it, in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing. This phenomenon has also led to the rise of pseudo-experts, people with no real expertise who speak with absolute confidence on complex topics. They're often favored by media outlets because they provide simple, definitive answers instead of complex explanations with appropriate qualifications. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw this clearly. Critical public health policy decisions were often made by people with no background in epidemiology. The result? A series of contradictory policies based on personal opinion or political interest rather than science. In contrast, countries like New Zealand, Taiwan, and Finland, where policy decisions were closely guided by scientific evidence and expertise, achieved much better outcomes in the pandemic and other crises. What is the cost of policy based on confidence rather than evidence? Economists estimate trillions of dollars in global GDP lost due to preventable policy errors. Worse yet, these losses aren't distributed equally. The most vulnerable groups in society often bear the heaviest burden. But there's a new factor amplifying Russell's paradox to unprecedented levels: the digital age. Let's explore how social media and their algorithms have transformed this paradox into a global crisis. The digital age amplifying stupidity. If Russell thought the problem was serious in his day, he would be horrified by what the digital age has done. In previous eras, confident ignorance was limited by geography and access. Today, it's amplified globally with a single click. Analysis of Twitter's X 2023 algorithm revealed astonishing insights about what type of content gets prioritized. Posts with 12 words or fewer are 3.2 times more likely to go viral than longer ones. Absolute statements, like "this is the truth" rather than "research suggests," generate 87% higher engagement. Emotional language, particularly expressions of anger, increases sharing rates by 34%. In other words, social media is designed to reward exactly the characteristics that Russell warned against: absolute confidence, oversimplification, and emotional fanaticism. This isn't accidental. Algorithms are optimized for engagement, and humans engage most strongly with content that's outrageous and highly confident. A former platform engineer admitted, "We discovered that certainty sells better than accuracy, so we optimized for conviction, not truth." A 2025 Cambridge University study showed stunning results. TikTok users receive 92% ideologically consistent content within just 48 hours of account creation. This creates what researchers call epistemic closure, a phenomenon where users mistake algorithmically curated content for consensus reality. A student in the study explained, "I believed everyone agreed with me because that's all I saw until I talked to people offline." This amplified polarization leads to what researchers call the balkanization of the information space, the fragmentation of the internet into separate regions where basic facts are disputed. Platforms have even found ways to monetize this phenomenon through what some critics call the ignorance economy. Hot take microtransactions allow users to pay to boost controversial opinions. Conspiracy tokenization rewards creators of elaborate conspiracy theories. The outrage economy provides financial incentives to keep people in a constant state of anger. With the emergence of deepfake technology and generative AI, this problem only becomes more severe. We're facing what futurists call a reality collapse, a point where the boundary between real and fake becomes so blurred it's impossible to distinguish. In such a world, those who can confidently lie, what Russell warned against, become more powerful than ever. Self-reinforcing mechanisms and universality. What makes Russell's paradox particularly dangerous is its self-reinforcing nature. This isn't just a static problem, it's a positive feedback loop. Here's how it works. A person who lacks competence but is extremely confident is given power because of that confidence. Once in power, their confidence increases regardless of the actual results of their decisions. Meanwhile, their success causes others to emulate this overconfident style, creating a culture that values certainty over accuracy. Meanwhile, actual experts with deep domain knowledge typically express appropriate uncertainty. They say things like, "It depends on the context," or "We need more data," or "Research in this area is still evolving." These are cognitively correct responses but socially less persuasive. As a result, they often get sidelined from public discourse. This phenomenon particularly affects women and minorities through what's called the Matilda effect, where their achievements and expertise are systematically undervalued. When combined with the stronger social pressure on these groups to display humility, the effect is compounded. Another disturbing phenomenon is the speed at which misinformation spreads. Research from MIT shows false information on Twitter spreads 6 times faster than accurate information. This is partly because fake news is typically presented with absolute confidence, while accurate information comes with appropriate qualifications and limitations. We're also witnessing the dramatic rise of anti-intellectualism, a systematic hostility toward expertise. This psychological phenomenon has multiple roots, but a key factor is the discomfort many people feel when confronted with complexity and uncertainty. Psychological researchers have found that many people prefer to hear an average person speak with absolute confidence rather than an expert acknowledging the limits of their knowledge. This is especially true in times of crisis or rapid change, when the need for certainty increases. The overall result is a gradual collapse of trust in expertise-based institutions. A 2024 survey found that trust in universities, science, medicine, fact-based journalism, and even official statistics is at historic lows in many democratic countries. This isn't just an academic problem. Effective democracy requires some degree of consensus on basic facts, and when this erodes, the entire system is endangered. As historian Timothy Snyder observed, post-truth is pre-fascism. While Russell's paradox appears prominently in modern Western society, it's a universal human phenomenon. Different cultures manifest it in different ways. Some Asian societies, for instance, tend to value humility over personal confidence, but the basic psychological phenomenon persists. Indeed, we can see examples of this paradox throughout history. Ancient Athens was partly destroyed by confident populists who convinced citizens that the Sicilian expedition would be easy and profitable. Feudal dynasties collapsed when isolated kings, surrounded by flatterers, made disastrous decisions with absolute confidence. Are there solutions to this universal and persistent problem? Fortunately, several promising approaches exist. Potential solutions. While Russell's paradox may never be entirely eliminated, we can do much to mitigate its negative impact on society. The key is education. Singapore implemented a nationwide critical thinking initiative in 2024 with impressive results. The program focuses on 3 main areas: error journaling, confidence calibration, and intellectual humility training. In error journaling exercises, students regularly document and analyze their mistakes, identifying precisely where errors originated. Confidence calibration exercises require students to rate their certainty about answers before and after receiving evidence, teaching them to adjust confidence levels to match actual knowledge. Intellectual humility modules help students recognize the limits of their knowledge and become comfortable saying, "I don't know." The results have been impressive. After 1 year, Dunning-Kruger gaps decreased by 41% across tested knowledge domains. Students not only learned better, but they also became much more accurate at self-assessing their knowledge. As Singapore's Education Minister Lin Wei explained, "We're not teaching students what to think, but how to accurately assess what they know and don't know." This is the most important skill for today's complex world. At the organizational level, Taiwan's V-Taiwan model offers a promising governance approach. The system gives domain experts proportional voting power on technical legislation, while maintaining citizen input on value judgments. This balanced approach prevented 83% of proposed cryptocurrency regulations from containing factual errors while still reflecting public priorities. It represents a decision-making system that values both expertise and democracy. In the corporate realm, California's 2025 Corporate Responsibility Act introduces notable requirements. It mandates leadership knowledge testing in core competency areas, decision transparency reports, documenting the evidence base for major initiatives, and incentives for error detection and correction. Corporate advocates initially opposed these requirements, but mounting evidence shows that compliant companies are significantly outperforming non-compliant ones, thanks to reduced risk associated with overconfidence-based decisions. In the digital sphere, the EU's 2025 Digital Services Act is leading the way in encouraging healthier information environments. The law requires platforms to implement uncertainty indicators on AI-generated content, expertise context for news articles and health information, nuanced scoring that rewards balanced evidence-based content. Early data suggests these interventions reduce misinformation spread by about 36% without restricting free speech. As digital ethicist Maya Horvath notes, we're not limiting speech, we're making it easier for users to distinguish between knowledge and noise. But we don't need to wait for system-level solutions. At the individual level, each of us can develop cognitive immunity to fake confidence by practicing these habits. Identify past mistakes and build humility in areas where we have little expertise. Be suspicious of information presented without exceptions or qualifications. Seek diverse perspectives, especially from those who disagree with us. Practice reversal tests, asking, what would cause me to change my mind on this issue? Develop a personal vocabulary of uncertainty levels, from I think and it seems to I'm reasonably confident and I would be surprised if I'm wrong. Notably, these habits don't diminish our communication effectiveness. On the contrary, they increase our credibility over time as people realize they can trust the confidence levels we express. The long-term vision is to build what scholars call a healthy epistemic culture, a society that honors accuracy over confidence. Countries like Estonia, Uruguay, and New Zealand are leading in this reform, building institutions and social norms that encourage critical thinking and adaptation to new information. It's important to recognize that this isn't just an academic concern. Our future depends on our ability to build societies that can distinguish between genuine expertise and hollow confidence. From climate change to emerging diseases, our greatest challenges require exactly what Russell's paradox undermines: evidence-based decision-making, collaborative truth-seeking, and appropriate humility in the face of complexity. The 8th conclusion, call to action. Russell's paradox isn't just an interesting note about human psychology. It's a fundamental flaw in our cognition, a flaw that our modern social systems are exploiting and amplifying. As we've seen, this misperception affects everything from workplaces to politics, from social media to personal communication. It encourages us to elevate incompetent people to leadership positions and makes us susceptible to misinformation. The consequences of this paradox can be catastrophic. As Russell warned in 1935, a world governed by cocksure ignorance courts species-level catastrophe. In an age of nuclear weapons, climate change, AI, and other emerging technologies, this warning becomes more urgent than ever. But there is reason for hope. Once we understand the mechanisms behind Russell's paradox, we can begin building educational, governance, technical, and social systems that minimize its negative impact. At the individual level, each of us can take steps to develop intellectual humility, recognizing the limits of our knowledge and seeking diverse information. We can learn to recognize and appreciate genuine expertise, even when it comes with uncertainty and complexity. As we consider humanity's upcoming challenges, from climate change to emerging technologies, overcoming Russell's paradox becomes one of our most important tasks. Only by learning to distinguish between genuine expertise and hollow confidence can we make the wise decisions that will shape our future. As Russell wrote, "What is needed is not the will to believe, but the desire to find out." It's time to build a society that embodies that desire, a society that honors truth over confidence, expertise over decisiveness, and wisdom over oversimplification. Remember, in a complex world, the right answer often begins with "it depends," or "we're not entirely certain, but the evidence suggests." And while that answer may not provide the immediate comfort of absolute confidence, it gives us something more valuable, a solid foundation for making better decisions. Thus, Russell's paradox isn't just a trap to avoid. It's an invitation to think more deeply, learn more humbly, and build better institutions. Let's accept that invitation together.